Oh my gosh, I am so excited. My name's Deborah Perlman. I am the host of Entrepreneurial OOMPH, and I so appreciate you guys listening and coming back week after week to hear some great stuff and gold nuggets from some amazing entrepreneurs and business professionals. Just a quick side note, I had a radio show back in the day. I just want somebody to know this. And it was actually AM FM radio. And believe it or not, back in the day, and I'm talking at least 10, 15 years ago, and one of the producers on the show said to me, you should start a podcast. And I looked at him and I said, his name was Rich. And I said, Rich, what's a podcast? Didn't know what it was, didn't exist. So here we are, and I have a podcast. So thank you and shout out to Rich from WTBQ Radio in Warwick, New York, and to Frank Truitt, who was the general manager, who I really appreciated because they helped me launch this speaking career that I have. So thank you to both of you. And talking about speaking careers and coaching careers, because I'm also a performance coach, I get the privilege of having amazing guests on. Today we have Adam Roach. He is founder
Mhm.
and entrepreneur, CEO, and all around just really a nice guy. And I am so fortunate and blessed and privileged to call him not just a business associate and a peer, but also a really good friend. And on that note, I'm going to introduce Adam and let him tell you about him, his business, and we'll start the conversation. So, Adam, take it away.
Yes, Deborah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was a very nice intro. And there's got to be recordings of your radio show somewhere. We need to hear that. Your world needs to hear your radio show. Where can we find that? It's got to be out there somewhere.
I'm going to call up Frank today. I'm going to tell it was called Unlock Your Sales Potential. And
Okay.
so it should be pretty easy to find.
I bet, because I bet there's a lot of great. How long did you do it for?
4 years.
4 years. And how frequently?
It was every week. Every
Can you
week.
imagine the amount of content you have for 4 years on the radio show? That's
Yeah,
really
I'm gonna have to call Frank.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for having me on your show. I'm excited to be here, excited to bring value to your listeners and give them a little oomph today.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Yeah.
So I just want to let everybody know. So Adam is an amazing human being and
Mm.
he's got a great story. And I hope that Adam will share that. And I'm pretty sure he will. I don't think there's anything that you're not going to tell us,
Nothing's off
right?
the table here. Nothing's off the
Awesome.
table. I'll share
Awesome. So
everything.
we're going to have an open conversation and who knows where it's going to go. So one of the things that I want to just tell you is that we live in Charleston, South Carolina. My husband and I moved down here about 5 years ago from the Hudson Valley of New York State. And I started working with Keller Williams, and we had talked about that a little while ago. Keller Williams, global, international real estate luxury firm. And Adam had reached out. I don't really even remember how we got connected, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
And he reached out. He's like, I've got this great program and you need to be a part of it. Like, where are you? Why aren't you here? Get a seat in the room with my group.
Hmm.
And I'm really glad I took advantage of the program that I did. And I know there's a lot more that you offer and
Hmm.
provide. And so why don't you share with us a little bit about what you're doing now? And then we're going to dive into a little bit of the backstory. All right.
Perfect. Absolutely. So I'm the founder of the I Love Coaching community, and we've been running this now for the last almost 6 years. I think we started in 2019. And there's a whole backstory of why this was started, and I'll share that here shortly. Though the Olive Coaching community is just exactly what it sounds like. We are a collective group of coaches all across the globe that my vision statement is simple to empower coaches. So that's all of us to empower coaches to change and serve 100 million people using what we call our real coach method. And real isn't an arrogant term, Deborah. It's an acronym that I've been fortunate and blessed to be coached by John Maxwell for, gosh, going on 15 years, 16 years now. And we developed this acronym, REAL, for relevant, experiential, authentic leaders. Because I believe that every coach should be a real coach. And with that, that's what we do inside the I Love Coaching community is we are a powerful group of coaches that I've built a blueprint specific for them to step into and have success in many different ways. And so I get to lead that group. I'm blessed to be able to lead this group of I don't even know how many coaches are in the collective right now, but I'll tell you what, it is incredible and a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. So real, it
Mhm.
was, say it one more time,
Relevant,
relevant.
experiential, authentic leaders, because here's where that came from. I had been coached my entire life. I played professional tennis. I was a collegiate tennis player. My father was an Olympic swim coach. And so I'd been around coaching my entire life. And when I got in the business world, I clearly continued to have a coach, but I've had some bad coaches before, both in the sporting world and in the business world. I've seen bad coaches. I've experienced bad coaches. And I don't mean bad in the sense that they didn't know what they were doing, but their relevancy was they were overstepping of what they really knew, right? And so that's why I brought relevance in there, is because the relevance is if someone is coaching you, you want them to be relevant in the space that they are coaching you in. Experiential. We can only share, teach, coach, whatever it is from our past experiences. I can't teach you how to be a billionaire because I've never been a billionaire. So don't come to me and ask me to help you become a billionaire. I'm not experienced in that space. Authentic, I think, is probably one of the second highest ones in that acronym because, again, your clients, people can see right through people being inauthentic. And so stepping into a space of authenticity, knowing to say, I don't know the answer to that is okay. Or what I like to teach my kids and even coaches right now is that the word help is not a weak word. The word help is a very powerful word that I had a coach one time, Dan Martell, as a matter of fact, who wrote the book Buy Back Your Time. And he shared this with me, Deborah, one time. He said, I asked him a question. I said, let me ask you, how do you ask for help? I said, because I'm not really good at it. And this is probably a little less than that, years ago. And he says, well, let me ask you a question back. He says, do you have the right people around you? Do you have the right family members around you? Do you have the right community around you? Do you have the right coaches, leaders, mentors, whatever it is? And I said, yeah. He said, if you're not asking for help from them, you're selfish. He says, you're being selfish.
Right.
So stepping into the authentic space is very important. And the last part of the acronym, the L, is leader, right? And leader and leadership are so vital to what we do in this coaching space. Because if you think about what leadership really is, it's just influence. And what is influence? Influence is getting someone to take action. So if you can step into a space of authentic, experiential, relevant leadership to get someone to take action to where they want to grow to, not go to, grow to, you're going to win. And so
That's
that's why we
good.
believe every coach should be a real coach.
Okay, I got it. So, just a side note, out of all of that, the thing that first stood out to me was you were a professional tennis player. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, let me back up. Let me back up. There, you would never find me on TV because I wasn't that professional. Though I was in the space of trying to make money as a tennis player on what we called the pseudo tennis tour at the time, which was what we call Future and Challengers. And well, let's just say I found out real quick I was an American, not a European, and was getting my butt kicked. And so I got out of that profession and got into the business world real fast.
Interesting. So, when you were in business, what business did you go into?
Yeah. So here's the fun story. So I left Indiana University, played some professional tennis, post playing tennis there. And then when I found out and realized that I was not going to be making as much money as I thought I was going to be making playing professional tennis, I got into the tennis business. And this is a fun story, and I believe God works in many different ways. And this is old school, so this is the end of the 90s. Pulled out the phone book. I was in Los Angeles, and I said, okay, let's go to tennis. And let's go, what listed in there is tennis. I'm gonna go get a tennis job. And the first one that popped up was Beverly Hills Tennis. And so there was the phone number. There was the fax number. I took a resume that I had. I found a fax machine and faxed my resume in and just said, I'd love to speak to someone about a job. And that's how the whole thing started. I gave myself 10 years from the time that I stopped playing tennis as a competitor. And I said, I'm going to own my own tennis business in 10 years. And it just so happened that I was in Los Angeles and I'm a native Hoosier. So that was just starry-eyed for me. And literally grew up, my grandfather and everyone pre my grandfather were farmers in Indiana. And so I didn't know the farm business, but I saw hard work. And so yeah, faxing the resume. They said, yeah, come on in here. Your resume speaks for itself. And so here I am driving my Honda Civic into Beverly Hills, thinking I'm going to be teaching tennis to the stars. And Deborah, here's what they told me. Hey, we could really use you here. And I'm thinking, yes. to answer the phones. So I had nothing else to do, and I didn't even know how much I was going to be making. Showed up the first day. You're going to be making $7.25 an hour answering the phones. And so I was so excited. Called my mom and I said, "Mom, I'm going to be working at Beverly Hills Tennis," and she was a tennis player as well, and she was so excited. And my stepfather said, "Let me ask you a question. How much are you making?" I said, $7.25 an hour. He says, "You got two options. You come back to Indiana and get a real job, or you stay in LA and never ask for money because you're in one of the most expensive cities in the world and you have a college degree and you played professional tennis and you're only making $7.25 an hour." And I said, "Well, I'm going to take the latter there because I believe in myself and I've got nothing else to do. And it doesn't ever rain here and the sun's always out and it's going to be amazing." And within 4 years, I owned 10% of that business.
Good for you.
Yep. Because I had nothing else to do. So I just stayed there. So I answered phones. And here's a little cheat code. And I say this because in business, we've got to, I believe, you got to work hard. There's no easy button in this world. And so I knew watching those tennis pros out there, I could teach tennis just as well as they could. And I'm not very patient. So my job was to answer the phone. And when a private lesson came in, I had to hand it out. So if 4 calls came in, I would hand out 3 and I'd put one in my pocket. And so when I get off of the clerical job, I'd call them up. I'd teach them on the side. And when they finally said, "Hey, Adam, you can start teaching tennis. We see that you're hitting good balls. We see you coach some little kids." I brought 22 clients with me onto the courts. And that's how I started my tennis business career. And then they asked me to run some things. And next thing I know, I was general manager of the whole thing. And then I built it up to be Los Angeles' #1 tennis program. It was
So
really
that's
cool.
another whole story in and of itself, by
Hmm.
the way, because those are all the steps in the how-to of how to build a business, right?
That's
So
right.
you have that experience that you mentioned, the
Hmm.
building of the business.
Hmm.
So what I'm interested in is, so this is going to be a very general statement, and I don't mean to insult anybody out there. Probably going to be some controversy based on this quote from me. Okay, this is a Deborah Pearlman quote. All
Love it.
right. Most coaches don't know how to sell.
No, no,
Okay.
no.
So having a sales and a business background
Mhm.
is definitely a plus for us as coaches.
Mhm.
Okay? You have done the business and own the business and really have the experience of growing it to the point where you owned a good percentage of a tennis business, which, by the way, did they have to buy you out? I'm just
They
curious.
did, yeah. So when I got into
Yeah.
the real estate business, they bought me out, but that was my entry level into understanding distributions or understanding um, passive income, but it wasn't really passive, but it was ownership distributions, right? So I made money on the tennis court. I made money as the general manager. And then, oh, by the way, we had profits. And since you own 10% of the business, you get 10% of profits. And I thought, holy cow, this is really cool. And that's what really drove me into owning businesses versus working in them. So then I stepped into the real estate business by accident. One of the guys that I was teaching tennis to, this was the early 2000s, he was a lender, and he said, "You should buy a house." I said, "Well, I'm a tennis pro in Beverly Hills. I make a lot of cash, but Uncle Sam doesn't know that I make a lot of cash. And so what do you recommend?" Now, this was for those real estate listeners. This was the early 2000s. And he said, "Don't worry. It's called a stated loan program and 100% financing. You just state your income. We'll believe you. And then we'll give you 100% of all the money." So, Deborah, I bought my first house in Los Angeles. I think I was 25 years old. I paid $480,000 for it, and it was only $200 more than what I was paying in rent. I was like, this is great. Now, here's the funny story. About 9 months later, that same guy, I'm still teaching him tennis. He helped me buy my first house. He said, "Sell it." I said, "Sell what?" He says, "Your house." I said, "Why in the world would I sell this house? My parents have lived in the same house for like 35 years." Again, we only know what we know, our conditioning, right? He
Mhm.
says, "Sell it." I said, "I don't know how to sell a house." Again, I teach tennis. He says, "Don't worry, I'll connect you with an agent." He connected me with an agent. The house sold, got under contract in like 45 days, and I made $90,000. I thought, whoa, that was really cool. Now, this was when you had prepayment penalties. So I had to pay my mortgage, him basically a certain percentage. I was like, okay, I don't know if I like that, but hey, I did make some good money. So I got into the real estate business of flipping homes. And I did that 19 more times in LA and Beverly Hills area. And then one of my tennis business partners was a broker and he had just joined Keller Williams. So he hands me the book, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And I love to read. And he says, read this. And then he says, there's what's called the organizational chart where we can build a team. Do you want to do it? I was like, sure, let's go. So I got my license and joined his team, and he went from Coldwell Banker to Keller Williams in Beverly Hills. So I was with Keller Williams in Beverly Hills, and we were attempting to build this team. But Deborah, I say this lovingly, I was the trash man. And here's what I mean by the trash man. I did everything on that team, everything, including taking the trash out. and and so that really helped me understand. But I'll tell you this one thing. I loved selling real estate, but I knew there was something bigger. Sure, Beverly Hills sales. We had a $55 million sale, which was really cool. And that was a neat check, but it wasn't scaling. It was like a rinse and repeat.
It's
I had to,
right. It's a transaction. It's not
yeah,
a.
I had to keep doing it. And I was like, gosh, that seems inefficient. Why would I want to keep doing something when I can see the owner that I'm giving my 30% to get 30% of all these agents here? Wow. Oh, I can see his financials. That's really cool. I want to do that. So that was mid 2000s, and by 2013, no, 2014, I owned 3 Keller Williams franchises. But at that time, I transitioned to Charleston. So I
I
owned
was
2
going to say,
here.
so that was in the Charleston area, those
Correct. Yep.
three.
Yep.
Got
2
it.
here in Charleston, 1 in Myrtle Beach, and I was in the process of buying 1 in Hilton Head too. Yeah.
Nice. So, all right. So now let's talk about the transition from now you're a coach. Why coaching? Why
Okay.
coach? And why build a business around coaching coaches and
Yep.
teaching coaches how to build their business?
Yep. Great question. Okay. So, so we'll go from 2015 to 2019. So my father was a very influential man in my life, and he was my coach. So watching him as a young kid train athletes to take them to the Olympic trials and then ultimately to the Olympics was something that I just saw as normal. But I always knew my dad as dad, but everybody else knew him as Coach Roach. And so that was really kind of cool for me. And I got to see him on magazine covers and I got to see him travel the world. And that was just, it was neat. My dad was really cool to me. Uh, Not always the nicest dad, but come on. If you got a dad that's super nice to you, he's not pushing you is the way I look at it. And he was not happy when I quit swimming and took up tennis, but that's a whole nother story. And so he, in that time frame that I was buying these franchises, he developed Parkinson's. And which isn't a deadly disease, but nevertheless, he only found out because he was training for his 3rd Ironman triathlon, and his times were getting slower, and he was very time oriented. And he called me up one day and says, Dad, Adam, my times are getting slower. It's like, Dad, you're getting older. He said, no, something's not right. My times are getting slower and they shouldn't be
Yeah,
getting
he
slower right now.
knew.
He
He
did know.
knew. Yeah.
And so he went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, well, I got good news and bad news. I know why your times are getting slower. That's the good news. The bad news is you have Parkinson's. And so come 2019, he passed from Parkinson's related issues. And he was still in his 60s. Very heartbreaking to me. And I didn't know what to do, right? I felt convicted. So I spoke the eulogy at his funeral. And Deborah, in this room, I got to see all the athletes. I got to see all the coaches. I got to see all the people that he had had an impact on. And the stories they shared with me about my dad were like, wow, that's that's what we're really here to do is serve, right? That's what we're really here to do is have an impact on people. And so we call it the beach chair moment inside of the Allo coaching community now. And the beach chair moment was after his funeral, I came back to Charleston. I sat on the beach at Sullivan's Island by myself. I brought my journal, I brought a Bible, I brought music, and I brought sunscreen for my bald head. And I sat there for 4 days. And not in a row, but I would leave and I'd come back and I would journal and I would pray and I'm sure if somebody looked at me, who's that crazy kid out there talking to himself? And I was actually just praying. And I kept asking for wisdom. I kept asking for clarity. I kept asking for what. I saw my dad's impact. I saw the hundreds of lives that he impacted. God, point me in the right direction. Very spiritual. And that's when I kept hearing, surround yourself with better people. Surround yourself with people who are aligned with what I'm going to give you. Surround yourself. You inherited these people you bought these franchises from, and they're not bad people, but they're not your people. So I didn't realize what I was hearing. And my pastor always said, if you think you're having a conversation with God, go take the words and lean it up on scripture. And because that's God's word. And I thought, wow, okay. And so I went to my pastor and I said, hey, this is what I'm hearing. He says, well, tell me what you do all day. And so I shared with him what I did. He says, have you ever considered selling those? And I said, no. He said, well, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if you're hearing from a higher power, you probably should listen. So I walked in, felt convicted. This is probably 2 months later. And with massive conviction, didn't know what was going to happen next. I walked in, I own the majority of these companies, and I said, hey guys, it's an easy conversation today. I have no agenda. Either I'm buying you out or you're buying me out.
Wow.
And
Leap of faith.
I'm going to surrender to this because there's a higher calling here that my dad, I believe, is still leading me to do. And I said, I'm not attached to the outcome. If y'all, and I want you guys to decide, right? I'm convicted that I'm not supposed to be in business with you.
Yep.
So either I have to buy you out or you have to buy me out. And it's okay either way.
Yeah, I just want to pause for 1 second. I know everybody wants to hear what happened.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment, and we all, as human beings, when we allow ourselves to really listen to our higher selves or the universe or God or whatever anyone out there is calling it, it's letting go of control. It's letting go of that tightness that we feel like we have to hold on so tight to everything, because if it falls apart, everything's going to break and I'm going to be devastated and my family won't survive. And you come up with all of these things, and you don't take that leap of faith, and you don't release, and you don't allow the next good thing to come into your life. So good for you, really,
Yeah.
for even taking a pause and even then going to your pastor and questioning
Mm-hmm.
what you were hearing. And yes, this is a very spiritual part of being a coach and being in business, but we're human beings and we are spiritual beings having
Yeah.
a human experience.
Yeah.
That's my belief. So I thank you for letting me pause here. So you went in and you put that on the table, you released all of that control,
Mm-hmm.
and you
Well,
took a
if you think
away.
about what can we really control and what really is ours, nothing,
Nothing.
right? And John Maxwell has beat this into my head, and he talks about the Good Samaritan story, and he says, that there's three parts to the story, but the fourth part we don't really ever dive into. And here's the fourth part. Well, the story is, the robber walks by and he's like, hey, what's yours is mine. I'm going to take it. Then you got the priests and the Levites who walk by and says, hey, what's mine is mine. I'm going to keep it. And you got the Good Samaritan that walks by and basically says, hey, what's mine is yours and you can have it. And John says this: when you can get to a point of realization in your life that what is yours isn't yours and you're just here to manage it,
Hmm.
the one thing you can control then is surrendering. You just surrender,
Yeah.
right? And whatever comes, comes. So I walked in and felt very convicted. I was not afraid. And I went to 3 separate meetings that day because there were 3 offices I was buying. The one I was attempting to buy at the time, I put it on pause. Now, I had built these up from nothing to something special. And one of them, we had grown from 120 some agents to over 400 agents. It was doing just south of $200,000 in profit when I bought it. And when I exited it successfully, we were doing over $1 million in profit. And I had a software business running at the same time called Recruiting Bridge. And that was a recruiting-based software, SaaS model, that was for real estate companies to recruit other people. And so they all came back and said, yeah, we'll buy you out. No problem. This company's running great.
Yeah.
So very blessed to have really good buyouts. But here was the kicker. Is what I learned through this process was surrendering is the right thing, but you better structure your exit deals really good. Because I had great exits in numbers. It didn't mean that I got all of it. And here's why. Leadership is everything. Vision is everything. And if there is no vision and if there is no leadership, the $1 million companies go to zero.
Yep.
It took me 4 years to take it to $1 million. It took them 4 years to go to zero.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, just like
yeah.
that. So I didn't get all the money that I was promised, but that's okay. It led me to build this community. It led me to build what was called the I Love Coaching community. Because that's what I was doing is I heard loud and clear, go serve. I heard loud and clear, go build something that you can surround yourself with the right people that you can pour into, that you can build something for them to give them a pathway. And I can honestly say it's 2025, fourth quarter. This year alone, we've helped 27 people who were sitting in, we call them survivor jobs, retire from those survivor jobs and now be full-time coaches. And it's just so stinking cool now. And the last thing I'll say about this, and we can keep different direction, is I kept hearing 100 million on the beach chair. 100 million, 100 million, Adam, 100 million. I was like, God, are you telling me I have to go make 100 million? That's kind of cool. No, that's not what it was. That was to be put in the vision statement, to empower coaches, people to change and serve. Watch my dad. I saw the people there at his funeral. He had served those people. He had changed some of those people. Some of the stories I heard from them coming up saying, your dad found me sitting on the side when I was supposed to be playing football and I didn't want to play football. And he pulled me in, threw me in the pool, and I got a college scholarship. No one ever in my family had ever gone to college. And now here's what I do because your dad, right? So the vision statement is to empower coaches to change and serve 100 million people. And that's what we're on path to do. And how do I measure that? No clue. I just know it's going to be a stone in the water and the ripple will continue.
Absolutely.
But
Yep.
that's how it works, right? And I'm going through this process. I don't work a day in my life right now, Deborah. I don't come to work. This is not work. This is me truly
Yep.
serving. And I hope you felt that in the challenge that you came through with us, because that's what I love to do now. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, what you so there's a lot to unpack, and I wish we had 7 hours. We're gonna have to have you back on again so we can continue in another direction on another time. I just the passion that you have, the energy that you have, and what you bring to the group is so evident, and I've experienced it, so I am talking from experience, right? The walk, you walk the talk and you talk the walk.
Mm.
And not a lot of people do. And yes, there are coaches out there. And I just a little bit of a segue for a second. Some people, one person in particular said to me years ago, and I was actually really insulted by this, and I'm not going to say his name, but he said to me, well, there are people who can do, and then there's coaching.
Mm.
And I was so there's a negative connotation in some people's minds, like, oh, I don't need a coach. What's a coach going to do for me? Why should I get a coach? And I think the word coach may be a little overused. I think what we really are is we're business strategists, we are mentors, we're guides. We are your advisory board. We're your brainstorming partner. There's a plethora of experienced professionals that have so much knowledge and have been there, done that have gone through the rockiest of times and the highs and the lows of the valleys of the business world. And I talk to so many people and I have clients who are like, I don't know, I'm thinking about getting out of this business, or I think I'm going to change jobs, or I'm going to do, and they just quit. And instead of, like you said, asking for help at the beginning, right? And say, maybe I can do this. I'm passionate about it. I love it. And I want to learn, grow, and expand. Well, that's in the coaching world too, because as coaches, we always want to be constantly learning. We want to be learning till the day our eyes close and we take our last breath.
Mhm.
So now that you're in this work that you do, in the line that you do,
Mhm.
and the services and the guidance and the mentoring and the business strategy that you offer to coaches
Mhm.
to build their business so they can be in service to more people.
Yeah.
I applaud that, and I am so grateful for you, and your clients and the people who are naturally attracted to you are very blessed.
Well,
So,
thank you very much, Deborah. Kind words. And I agree with you. Here's for the listeners, I have a simple system called the macro and micro problem solution cycle process. And if anybody wants it, go to my Instagram, Adam R. Roach, 2 R's in there.
yeah, I was
And
just about to ask you how are people going to get a hold of you.
just type Deborah and or Deb and I'll Deborah and I'll send it to you, right? And what's really neat about this though is the word coach, in my opinion, isn't clear, right? It's not clear. What
Yeah.
needs to be clear is coach with what payoff, right? Because you're a coach, I'm a coach. We all have past experiences, but we're not created equal in that regard, right? And so I'll give you an example of what that means from a payoff standpoint. I'd been married once before, divorced, found truly my equal, my love of my life, my true soulmate. Like, I mean, we've been together now maybe going on 10 years. And every time I look at her, I'm like, it's just like the first time I saw her again, right? And before I got into a very deep, committed space, I hired a relationship coach. And because I knew this individual could help me become a better person in that specific lane. And boy, did he whip me into shape, right? And so if you are in the space of either desiring to be a coach, you are very unique. And as Rory Vaden says, you are most powerfully positioned right now to serve the person who you once were. Right. And so that's why I created this problem solution cycle process. It's very clear, very simple. Right. And the neat part is I've seen people challenge it and then come back and say, Adam, I missed one part of the problem solution cycle. I was like, yep, I know. I saw it, but you go ahead and tell me. And it's the word passion. Right. Just because you have relevance, experience, and you can be authentic in a space, if you're not passionate about having someone solve that problem and you step into a coaching relationship with them, it ain't going to last. Right. And this person thought that they wanted to coach people in a specific industry. And then she came back and she was like, gosh, I got to go through that problem solution cycle again because I dislike these people I'm coaching. I was like, okay, cool. What are you going to do? She went back through it, came back. She said, oh my gosh, I found it. The word passion out of I missed it. I'm passionate about entrepreneurial mothers because that's who I am.
That's awesome.
You know whose business took off? Hers did. Yeah. So I mean
Good
that's
for
you
her.
nailed it with that. Yeah.
Good for her. So, okay. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom and your story and for
Mhm.
being so transparent. We are going to have you on again. I think we'll wait a little while, and I want to hear a little bit more about the tennis and how you actually built up to that, because I think there's a lot of people who would benefit from that. And then how coaches actually helped you get where you are. I think that's part two. Okay.
Beautiful. Okay.
All right.
Excellent. Yep.
So again, so if somebody wants to get hold of you, wants to reach out, if there's coaches that are listening, please take advantage of this opportunity. Adam gave us a great promotion. You just have to type my name in an Instagram message, right, to
Yep.
him.
That's right.
He'll
Go to
tell you.
Adam R. Roach on Instagram and just type in Deborah, and I'll
Okay.
send you my problem solution cycle macro and micro, and that'll help you uncover what specifically you could coach other people in that, again, you have relevance.
Awesome. And then for them to get a hold of you otherwise, email, phone, what's the
Yeah,
best way?
Well, the fast one is going to be Instagram. If you want to see what the I Love Coaching community is all about, just go to ilovecoachingco.com. We have a couple things coming up. I'm not sure when this is going to be dropped, but we have some big things coming up in January. We have what we call our $250,000 intensive, where we only bring in 20 coaches,
Nice.
and we position them in a day and a half to go make $250,000 in the next 12 months. And then we have a challenge coming up, and that's how to make $10,000 in a month. So go to ilovecoachingco.com, and you can see all of that there. And Deborah, it's been an honor to be on here. Thank you so much for allowing me to be in your world and serve you
Oh,
and serve your listeners now.
if there's one last just gold nugget thought that you just want to leave everybody with, what would it be?
Great question. Um, Great question. I think that if you stop trying to control things and allow yourself to surrender to your passion, right? Surrender to what your calling is. John Maxwell talks to us all the time about identifying your calling, right?
Mhm.
When you find that calling, surrender. Just surrender. Stop trying to control things around it and just lean into that as much as you can. Coaching, building these communities, doing this, serving people is my calling. And that's why I don't work a day in my life.
Yeah, thank you. Good for you. Thank you so much, Adam, for joining us. I really appreciate the time that you've given us. My name is Deborah Perlman. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Entrepreneurial OOMPH. You can find me on the internet. Just look up Deborah Perlman, OOMPH. You can look up Entrepreneurial OOMPH. I've got the podcast. I've got a book called OOMPH. Guess.
Mm-hmm.
That was a trick question. Guess what? And we will be back next Tuesday with another episode. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. See you guys.